The sound of lockers slamming shut echoed through the hallways of Westlake Academy as students rushed to their morning classes. Among them was a new face, 14-year-old Andre Thompson, clutching his schedule tightly as he navigated the unfamiliar corridors. Andre and his mom had moved to town just last week after she landed a job at the local hospital. The move meant leaving behind his friends and the teachers who had always appreciated his remarkable gift for numbers. Math had been Andre's safe place for as long as he could remember, the one subject where everything just made sense. Room 237. Room 237, Andre muttered to himself, scanning the numbered doors. His heart beat a little faster as he finally spotted it at the end of the hall. Advanced Algebra with Mrs. Wilson. Taking a deep breath, Andre knocked gently on the already open door. 25 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him as Mrs. Wilson paused mid-sentence. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice carrying a slight edge that made Andre instantly uneasy. "I'm new. This is my class," he explained quietly, handing her the schedule slip from the office. Mrs. Wilson glanced at the paper, her eyebrows rising slightly. "Advanced Algebra? Are you sure you're in the right place?" A few students snickered. Andre felt his cheeks grow warm, but he nodded confidently. "Yes, ma'am. I was in the advanced program at my old school, too." Mrs. Wilson's lips pressed into a thin line as she handed back his schedule. "Very well. Take that empty seat in the back row," she instructed, pointing to the furthest desk from her own. "We're reviewing quadratic equations today. Try to keep up." Andre slid into the seat, pulling out his notebook and pencil. He could feel curious glances from the students around him, but kept his eyes forward. This wasn't his first time being the new kid, though it never got any easier. "As I was saying before we were interrupted," Mrs. Wilson continued, turning back to the whiteboard, "the quadratic formula allows us to solve any equation in the form x2 plus bx plus co equals 0. She wrote out the formula and began working through an example problem, carefully explaining each step. Andre followed along, his pencil moving across his paper in perfect sync with her explanation. This was basic stuff for him. He'd mastered quadratics in 7th grade. "So our solution is x equals -3 or x equals 2, Mrs. Wilson concluded, circling her answers with a flourish. Andre frowned, double-checking his own work. Something wasn't right. He hesitated, knowing from experience that correcting a teacher on his first day might not be the best move. But math was math. Right was right and wrong was wrong. Slowly, he raised his hand. Mrs. Wilson's gaze swept past him as she asked, "Any questions before we move on to the next example?" Andre kept his hand up, and finally, after calling on 2 other students with simpler questions, she acknowledged him with visible reluctance. "Yes." "What was your name again?" "Andre, ma'am. I think there might be a small mistake in the solution." The classroom fell silent. Mrs. Wilson's expression hardened. "Excuse me?" "In the calculation," Andre explained, his voice steady despite his nervousness. "When you simplified -6 plus or minus the square root of 36 plus 24, I think the result should be -3 or +4, not 2. Mrs. Wilson glanced back at her work, then turned to Andre with a dismissive wave. "I've been teaching algebra for 15 years, young man. Perhaps you should focus more on learning and less on trying to show off." She erased the board without checking her calculations and started a new problem. Andre sank lower in his seat, the familiar sting of being brushed aside settling in his chest. He'd been hoping things would be different at this school. A girl with braided hair at the desk next to his leaned over slightly. "That was brave," she whispered. "But just so you know, Mrs. Wilson never admits when she's wrong." "Thanks for the heads up," Andre whispered back, offering a small smile. "I'm Andre." "I'm Zoe," she replied. "And you were right, by the way. I checked it too." The class continued with Mrs. Wilson working through several more problems. Andre noticed she made no more calculation errors, but her gaze rarely traveled to his corner of the room. When the bell finally rang, Andre gathered his things slowly, letting the rush of students clear before approaching Mrs. Wilson's desk. "Excuse me, Mrs. Wilson? I just wanted to apologize if I came across as disrespectful earlier. That wasn't my intention." Mrs. Wilson looked up from her papers, studying him for a moment. "Where did you transfer from, Andre?" "Lincoln Middle School in Parksville." Their standards must be quite different from ours," she remarked. At Westlake Academy, we value thoroughness and attention to detail. Not just quick answers that might impress your friends. Andre blinked, caught off guard by the unfair assessment. I understand, ma'am. I'll make sure to show all my work. Good. And know your place in this classroom. You're new here. And despite what your previous teachers may have told you, being advanced in one school doesn't automatically make you advanced in another. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. You'll need to prove yourself here. Andre nodded, gripping the strap of his backpack tighter. Yes, ma'am. I'll do my best. The interaction left a knot in his stomach as he headed to his next class. He'd encountered teachers who underestimated him before, but something about Mrs. Wilson felt different, more personal somehow, as if she'd decided something about him before he even opened his mouth. During lunch, Andre found himself sitting alone until Zoe appeared, tray in hand with two other students. Mind if we join you? She asked. Without waiting for an answer, she sat down and gestured to her companions. This is Tyler and Damon. Guys, this is Andre, the new kid who actually stood up to the dragon lady. Tyler, a lanky boy with glasses, looked impressed. Seriously? On your first day? That's either really brave or really crazy. Probably a bit of both, Andre admitted with a small laugh. Mrs. Wilson's been teaching here forever, Damon explained, unwrapping his sandwich. My older sister had her 5 years ago and said she was tough then too. But she's especially hard on anyone she thinks isn't Westlake material. He made air quotes with his fingers. What does that mean? Andre asked, though he had an uneasy feeling he already knew. The three exchanged glances before Zoe spoke up. Let's just say this school isn't exactly known for its diversity. Mrs. Wilson is old-fashioned, and by old-fashioned I mean, I get it. Andre cut in quietly. It wasn't the first time he'd encountered this particular brand of old-fashioned. But hey, Tyler added quickly, we have this big math competition coming up, the Regional Mathematics Olympiad. Mrs. Wilson always coaches the school team. You should try out if you're good with numbers. Andre brightened at this. Really? We had something similar at my old school. I made it to state finals last year. No way, Zoe exclaimed. That's amazing. You definitely need to sign up. For the first time that day, Andre felt a spark of genuine excitement. A math competition was exactly what he needed. A chance to prove himself through his work rather than having to convince people to take him seriously. The rest of the day passed in a blur of new classes, new teachers, and the usual first-day information overload. When Andre got home that afternoon, he found his mom in the kitchen preparing dinner. There he is. Lisa Thompson turned from the stove with a bright smile. How was your first day, baby? Andre dropped his backpack by the kitchen table. It was interesting. Lisa's smile faltered. She knew her son well enough to read between the lines. What happened? Andre shrugged, trying to downplay his concerns as he grabbed an apple from the fruit bowl. Nothing major, just the usual new kid stuff. Getting used to different teaching styles. Andre, Lisa said, giving him her no-nonsense look. Talk to me. With a sigh, Andre sank into a chair and told her about his encounter with Mrs. Wilson. As he spoke, he could see his mother's expression shift from concern to the controlled anger he recognized from previous schools, the look she got when she was trying. Not to show how upset she really was, I see, she said when he finished. And this woman teaches advanced math? She's also in charge of the school's math competition team. There's this big regional thing coming up. Lisa nodded slowly. Well, maybe that's your opportunity then. Show her what you can do through your work. Sometimes that's the only way to change people's minds. Or maybe she'll just find new ways to make things harder, Andre muttered. Lisa came around the table and placed her hands on her son's shoulders. Listen to me. You are brilliant, Andre Thompson. Your brain works in ways that amaze me every single day. Don't let anyone dim your light or make you doubt yourself. Not ever. Andre leaned into his mother's embrace, drawing strength from her unwavering belief in him. Tomorrow's a new day, Lisa continued. Give her a chance to see the real you, and if she doesn't, that's her loss, not yours. Andre nodded, knowing his mom was right in principle, even if the reality of facing Mrs. Wilson again tomorrow made his stomach churn. That night, he pulled out his old math notebooks and flipped through pages of complex problems he'd solved, theorems he'd proven, and the congratulatory notes from his previous teachers. One in particular caught his eye. A comment from Mr. Rivera after Andre had discovered an alternative solution to a challenging calculus problem. Never be afraid to see what others don't. That's not showing off, that's showing up. Andre ran his fingers over the words, drawing resolve from them. Whatever Mrs. Wilson thought of him, whatever assumptions she'd made, he wouldn't let her stop him from showing up fully. His love for mathematics ran too deep to let anyone take that away from him. Tomorrow, he decided, he would sign up for the Mathematics Olympiad. And then he would let his work speak for itself. The next morning, Andre arrived at school 20 minutes early, determined to sign up for the Mathematics Olympiad. The sign-up sheet was posted on the bulletin board outside the math department, and he felt a flutter of excitement as he wrote his name in neat letters at the bottom of the nearly full list. "You're really going for it, huh?" Andre turned to see Tyler adjusting his glasses, backpack slung over one shoulder. "Yeah," Andre nodded. "Math competitions have always been my thing. Back at my old school." Well, another eager contestant. Mrs. Wilson's voice cut through their conversation as she approached the bulletin board, coffee mug in hand. Her eyes narrowed slightly as they landed on Andre. "I see you've added your name to our team roster." "Yes, ma'am," Andre replied politely. "I'd like to try out." Mrs. Wilson took a slow sip from her mug. "You understand this isn't just for anyone who thinks they're good at math, right? The regional Olympiad is highly competitive. Our school has a reputation to uphold." Tyler shifted uncomfortably beside Andre. "I understand," Andre said, maintaining eye contact despite the knot forming in his stomach. "I've competed before. I reached the state finals at my previous school." Something flickered across Mrs. Wilson's face. Surprise, perhaps, or disbelief. She quickly masked it with a tight smile. "Is that so? Well, tryouts are Friday after school. We'll see if your previous experience meets our standards." With that, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking sharply against the tiled floor. Tyler let out a low whistle. "Man, what did you do to get on her bad side so quickly?" Andre shrugged, trying to appear unbothered. "It existed, I guess." "Don't let her get to you," Tyler said, punching his arm lightly. "She's like that with lots of kids. You should see how she treats Damon, and his dad's on the school board." The warning bell rang, sending students scurrying to their first classes. As Andre headed to advanced algebra, he mentally prepared himself for another day of subtle jabs and dismissive comments. Sure enough, when class began, Mrs. Wilson seemed determined to prove her point. As she handed back the previous day's worksheet, a eyesight quick assessment she'd given to gauge where everyone stood, she paused at Andre's desk. "Mr. Thompson, I'd like to speak with you after class about your work." A few students glanced back at him with curious expressions, but Andre just nodded, his face carefully blank. He already suspected what this was about. The worksheet had included several challenge problems that went beyond what the class was currently studying. He'd solved them all, using methods that probably weren't in Mrs. Wilson's lesson plan. When class ended, Andre approached Mrs. Wilson's desk as the other students filed out. Zoe caught his eye from the doorway, giving him a supportive thumbs up before disappearing into the hallway. "You wanted to see me?" Andre asked. Mrs. Wilson slid his worksheet across her desk. At the top, in red pen, was a large B with a note, "Show all work. Unorthodox methods require explanation." Andre stared at the grade in confusion. He double-checked every answer before turning in the worksheet. "They were all correct. I don't understand," he said. "Are any of the answers wrong?" "It's not about the answers, Mr. Thompson. It's about the process. You've skipped steps, used shortcuts, and frankly, I'm not entirely convinced you didn't just copy these answers from somewhere." Heat rushed to Andre's face. "I didn't cheat. I just solved them the way I know how." "And where exactly did you learn these methods?" "They're certainly not what I've been teaching. Some from my old teacher, Mr. Rivera. Some I figured out myself." Andre hesitated before adding, "Math can be solved many different ways. The answers still come out the same." Mrs. Wilson's lips pressed into a thin line. "At Westlake Academy, we follow proper mathematical procedures. I need to see every step of your work, using the methods I've taught in class. Otherwise, I can't properly assess your understanding. But this isn't open for debate. Mr. Thompson, if you want to succeed in my class, you'll do things the Westlake way." She handed him a clean worksheet. "Redo these problems with complete work, following the methods we've covered. Due tomorrow." Andre took the paper, fighting to keep his expression neutral. Yes, ma'am. As he turned to leave, Mrs. Wilson added, and Andre, I'd reconsider signing up for the Olympiad if I were you. It requires a deep understanding of mathematical principles, not just tricks and shortcuts. The comment stung, but Andre kept walking, his grip on the worksheet tightening until the paper crinkled at the edges. Over the next 3 weeks, a clear pattern emerged. No matter how thorough Andre was with his work, no matter how perfect his answers, Mrs. Wilson always found something to criticize. His grades hovered at B- or C+, while students whose work contained actual errors received higher marks. When he raised his hand in class, Mrs. Wilson would call on everyone else first, often running out of time before reaching him. And somehow, he was always assigned the most difficult problems during board work, as if she were hoping he'd slip up in front of everyone. Most painful of all, despite acing the Olympiad tryout exam with the highest score in the school, Andre found his name mysteriously absent from the final team roster. When he questioned Mrs. Wilson about it, she claimed his problem-solving approach lacked the discipline and structure the competition required. It's not just about getting the right answer, she told him, not quite meeting his eyes. It's about representing Westlake with the proper techniques and methods. The unfairness of it all was wearing Andre down. His love for math, once a source of pure joy, was becoming tainted by anxiety and frustration. Even his friends noticed the change. You barely talked during lunch today, Zoe commented as they walked to their lockers after school. Everything okay? Andre shrugged, spinning the combination on his lock. Just tired, I guess. It's Mrs. Wilson, isn't it? Zoe leaned against the neighboring locker, her expression sympathetic. Everyone can see what she's doing. It's not right. Doesn't matter if it's right, Andre muttered, shoving books into his backpack with more force than necessary. Nobody's going to do anything about it. Have you told your mom? Andre closed his locker with a sigh. Not everything. She's got enough to worry about with her new job. Besides, what can she do? It's not like Mrs. Wilson is flunking me. She's just... He trailed off, unable to articulate the 1,000 tiny cuts that made up Mrs. Wilson's treatment of him. Making your life miserable in ways that are hard to prove. Zoe finished for him. Classic Mrs. Wilson. That evening, though, the truth came out. Lisa Thompson noticed her son's subdued mood as he picked at his dinner, and her maternal instincts went on high alert. Okay, enough, she said, putting down her fork. What's going on with you? And don't say nothing because I know that's not true. Andre looked up, ready to brush off her concern, but something in his mother's determined expression told him she wouldn't let it go this time. With a heavy sigh, he told her everything, the biased grading, the classroom dismissals, being left off the Olympiad team despite outscoring everyone else. Lisa listened without interrupting, but Andre could see the anger building in her eyes. When he finished, she reached across the table and took his hand. Tomorrow morning, we're going to see the principal. Mom, no, Andre protested. That'll just make things worse. Mrs. Wilson will think I went running to my mommy because I couldn't handle her class. This isn't about handling a tough teacher, Andre. This is about fairness. About your education. And I'm not sitting by while someone tries to dim your light just because they can't see how bright it shines. Andre wanted to argue further, but the determined set of his mother's jaw told him it would be pointless, and maybe, just maybe, a small part of him was relieved that someone was finally going to do something. The next morning, Lisa Thompson marched into Westlake Academy's front office, Andre reluctantly in tow, and demanded to see Principal Winters. After a 15-minute wait that did nothing to cool Lisa's simmering anger, they were ushered into a spacious office where a balding man with kind eyes and a harried expression greeted them. Mrs. Thompson. Andre. Please have a seat. What can I help you with today? Lisa wasted no time getting to the point. My son is being discriminated against by Mrs. Wilson, and I want to know what you plan to do about it. Principal Winters blinked, clearly caught off guard by her directness. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Thompson. Can you be more specific about what's happening? As Lisa laid out the evidence, the inconsistent grading, the classroom treatment, the Olympiad exclusion, Andre noticed the principal's expression shift from skeptical to concerned. When she finished, he turned to Andre. Is this an accurate account of what's been happening, son? Andre nodded, avoiding eye contact. Yes, sir. Principal Winters leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. I've known Mrs. Wilson for 15 years. She's one of our most experienced teachers. Experience doesn't exempt someone from bias, Lisa countered firmly. No, it doesn't, the principal agreed with a sigh. Look, I take these concerns very seriously, but I hope you understand that I can't simply take action based on one meeting. I need to observe, gather information, speak with Mrs. Wilson. Meanwhile, my son continues to be treated unfairly, Lisa said, her voice rising slightly. Mom, Andre murmured, placing a hand on her arm. It's okay. Principal Winters held up a placating hand. I understand your frustration, Mrs. Thompson. Here's what I can do. First, I'll personally review Andre's work and compare it with his grades. Second, I'll sit in on Mrs. Wilson's class several times over the next week unannounced. And third, I'd like to see Andre's Olympiad tryout results for myself. He turned his attention to Andre. I know this isn't easy for you, but I want you to promise me something. Keep doing your best work. Don't let this situation change how you approach your education. Can you do that for me? Andre nodded, feeling a small spark of hope for the first time in weeks. Yes, sir, I can. Good man. The principal stood, extending his hand to Lisa. Mrs. Thompson, I'll be in touch within the week. You have my word that I'll look into this thoroughly. As they left the office, Andre wasn't sure what to feel. Relief that someone was finally listening? Anxiety about what Mrs. Wilson would do when she found out? Or skepticism that anything would really change? You did the right thing, his mother said, seeming to read his thoughts as they walked to the car. Standing up for yourself is never wrong, Andre nodded. But as he headed to class, to face Mrs. Wilson again, he couldn't help wondering if standing up would be worth the fallout that was surely coming. Andre's worst fears came true the moment he stepped into advanced algebra that morning. Mrs. Wilson's eyes followed him as he walked to his seat, her expression colder than usual. Somehow she already knew about the meeting with Principal Winters. The entire class felt the tension as Mrs. Wilson's voice took on an extra edge. She announced a surprise quiz, one that covered material they hadn't fully reviewed yet, and paced the room like a hawk watching for prey as students frantically worked through the problems. When she reached Andre's desk, she paused. Having trouble, Mr. Thompson? She asked loud enough for nearby students to hear. Perhaps the material is too advanced after all. Andre kept his eyes on his paper. No, ma'am. I'm doing fine, and he was. Despite the quiz covering unfamiliar territory, the mathematical principles were ones he understood deeply. He finished 5 minutes early and double-checked his work, aware of Mrs. Wilson's gaze burning into him from the front of the room. When the bell rang, Mrs. Wilson collected the quizzes, making a show of placing Andre's on top of the stack with a skeptical glance. Remember, everyone, the Olympiad team meets after school today to begin preparation. I expect excellence from each of you. The pointed reminder felt like salt in a wound. Andre packed up his things quickly, wanting to escape before his emotions got the better of him. Zoe caught up with him in the hallway. What was that about? She seemed extra nasty today. My mom met with Principal Winters this morning, Andre explained quietly. Looks like Mrs. Wilson already found out. Wow, your mom actually went to the principal? That's brave, Andre shrugged. Or stupid. Look how it's going so far. Zoe squeezed his arm supportively. Hang in there. Something's got to give eventually. But as the day wore on, Andre wasn't so sure. The thought of enduring weeks or months more of Mrs. Wilson's treatment made his stomach churn. By lunchtime, he'd made up his mind to ask his mom if he could switch to regular math, give up the advanced class entirely, and just keep his head down until the year ended. He was so lost in thought that he almost collided with a tall, gray-haired man in a tweed jacket outside the cafeteria. Whoa there, young man, the man said, steadying Andre with a hand on his shoulder. No rush, the pizza's not going anywhere. Sorry, sir, Andre mumbled, looking up to find an unfamiliar face. The man had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and carried a worn leather briefcase covered in travel stickers. No harm done. Say, could you point me toward the main office? I'm afraid I've gotten myself turned around. Down that hallway, take a left, and it's the second door on the right, Andre directed. Much obliged. The man nodded, then paused. First day back in a high school in years, and I'm already lost. Not the best start for a substitute teacher, is it? Andre smiled despite himself. Everyone gets lost in this building at first. You'll figure it out. The man thanked him and headed off in the direction Andre had indicated. Andre thought nothing more of the encounter as he joined his friends for lunch, his mind still preoccupied with what to do about Mrs. Wilson. "You're going to switch classes?" "Seriously?" Tyler looked dismayed when Andre shared his plan. "But you're like scary good at math. You belong in advanced?" "It doesn't matter where I belong if the teacher's determined to make me fail," Andre said, pushing his lunch tray away. "Don't give up," Damon urged. "My dad always says that sometimes you have to outlast the problem." "Easy for him to say," Andre muttered. "He doesn't have to face Mrs. Wilson every day." The rest of the afternoon dragged by, and by the time the final bell rang, Andre had his speech prepared for his mother. He'd explain how switching classes was the sensible option, how it wasn't giving up, just being strategic. As he headed toward his locker, a voice called out from Mrs. Wilson's classroom. "Andre, wait up." It was Zoe, waving him over with unusual excitement. "You have to come see this." "See what?" Andre asked warily, hesitating at the classroom door. "Mrs. Wilson's not here today. We have a substitute for the Olympiad meeting, and he's asking about you." Confused, Andre followed Zoe into the classroom, where the math team members had gathered around a familiar figure, the gray-haired man he'd given directions to earlier. "Ah, there he is," the substitute announced when he spotted Andre. "The young gentleman who kept me from wandering the halls all day." The man extended his hand. "Dr. Phillips, I'm filling in for Mrs. Wilson this week. She's had a family emergency and asked me to take over her classes and the Olympiad coaching." Andre shook his hand, still confused. "But I'm not on the team." Dr. Phillips looked genuinely surprised. "Not on the team? But I have the tryout scores right here." He rifled through some papers on the desk. "Andre Thompson, you had the highest score by quite a margin." The other students exchanged glances. Tyler spoke up. "Yeah, we all knew Andre crushed the tryouts. Mrs. Wilson said he wasn't a good fit for the team dynamic or something." Dr. Phillips frowned. "Well, that's peculiar. In my experience, the best mathematician is always a good fit for a math team." He gestured to an empty desk. "Please join us, Andre, I insist." For the next hour, Dr. Phillips led the team through a series of increasingly challenging problems. Unlike Mrs. Wilson's rigid approach, he encouraged students to tackle problems in whatever way made sense to them, then share their methods with the group. "Mathematics isn't about following a prescribed set of steps," he explained. "It's about finding pathways through problems, sometimes pathways no one has seen before." Andre found himself raising his hand more and more as the session progressed, his earlier caution replaced by growing enthusiasm. When Dr. Phillips presented a particularly tricky calculus problem, far beyond the normal high school level, Andre was the only one who saw a solution. "May I?" he asked, pointing to the whiteboard. "By all means." Dr. Phillips stepped aside. Andre walked through his approach step by step, using a technique he'd developed himself after reading about similar problems in an advanced textbook. When he finished, the room was silent. Dr. Phillips adjusted his glasses, studying Andre's work with an expression of growing astonishment. "Young man, do you realize what you've just done?" Andre's confidence faltered. "Solved the problem?" "Not just solved it. You've used a method I've only seen in graduate-level mathematics." "Where did you learn this approach?" "I kind of figured it out on my own," Andre admitted. "I read about similar methods and adapted them." Dr. Phillips turned to the rest of the team, his eyes alight with excitement. "Do you all understand what you just witnessed? This is original mathematical thinking, the kind universities fight over." The team members looked at Andre with newfound respect. Zoe beamed at him from across the room, giving him a thumbs up. "Andre," Dr. Phillips continued, "I'd like to speak with you after we wrap up here. I think you and I have much to discuss." When the session ended, the other students filed out, leaving Andre alone with Dr. Phillips, who perched on the edge of Mrs. Wilson's desk with a thoughtful expression. "So, Andre, tell me about your mathematical journey so far." For the next half hour, Andre found himself opening up about his love of numbers, the challenges he'd faced, and even the situation with Mrs. Wilson. It was strange how easy Dr. Phillips was to talk to, like he truly cared about what Andre had to say. "I must say," Dr. Phillips remarked when Andre finished, "I find it deeply troubling that such talent has been discouraged rather than nurtured." "It's fine," Andre shrugged. "I was actually thinking of switching to regular math anyway." "That would be a tragedy," Dr. Phillips said firmly. Tell me, have you heard of the National Institute for Mathematical Advancement? Andre shook his head. I'm a professor there when I'm not substituting for old colleagues. We run an intensive summer program for exceptionally gifted students. Students exactly like you, Andre. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a brochure. I'd like you to consider applying. With your abilities, I have no doubt you'd be accepted, and I'd be honored to serve as your sponsor. Andre stared at the glossy pamphlet, hardly believing what he was hearing. But why would you do this? You barely know me, Dr. Phillips smiled warmly. In my 40 years of teaching mathematics, I've learned to recognize true genius when I see it. It would be a disservice to mathematics itself to let your talent go uncultivated. A knock at the door interrupted them. Principal Winters stood in the doorway, surprise evident on his face when he saw Andre. Dr. Phillips, I see you've met Andre Thompson. Indeed I have, Dr. Phillips stood to shake the principal's hand. And I must say you have a mathematical prodigy in your midst. I was just discussing the NEMA summer program with him. Principal Winters raised his eyebrows. Is that so? Actually, I've been meaning to speak with Andre about his mathematics class. Well, if I may be so bold, Dr. Phillips interjected, whatever concerns exist about Andre's performance in Mrs. Wilson's class, I can assure you they're entirely unfounded. His understanding of mathematical principles is extraordinary, well beyond high school level. The principal studied Andre thoughtfully. I suspected as much. I've been reviewing some of Andre's work. He turned to Andre. Your mother raised some concerns about how you've been treated in Mrs. Wilson's class. I want you to know I'm taking those concerns very seriously, and having Dr. Phillips's perspective is illuminating. Andre felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. For the first time since arriving at Westlake, someone in authority was actually listening. In fact, Principal Winters continued, I wonder if you'd be willing to participate in a demonstration. Andre, the Regional Mathematics Olympiad has invited Dr. Phillips to give a guest lecture tomorrow on advanced problem-solving techniques, and they've asked for a student volunteer to assist. Dr. Phillips nodded enthusiastically. An excellent idea. Andre would be perfect. What kind of demonstration? Andre asked cautiously. Just solving a few problems in front of an audience, Dr. Phillips explained. The kinds of things we worked on today, nothing you can't handle. Andre hesitated. The thought of solving math problems in front of strangers was intimidating, but after weeks of being dismissed and underestimated, the opportunity to show what he could really do was too tempting to resist. Okay, he agreed. I'll do it. Wonderful. Dr. Phillips clapped his hands together. Meet me here tomorrow after school. We'll head to the university together. As Andre walked home that afternoon, his steps felt lighter than they had in weeks. The brochure from Dr. Phillips was safely tucked in his backpack, and for the first time since coming to Westlake, he felt like maybe, just maybe, things were about to change. Andre could hardly sleep that night. He told his mom everything about Dr. Phillips, the summer program, and the demonstration at the university. Lisa Thompson listened with growing excitement, her eyes shining with pride. I knew someone would finally see what I've always seen in you, she said, pulling him into a tight hug. You just needed the right person to notice. What if I mess up tomorrow? Andre asked, voicing the fear that had been growing in his mind. What if I freeze or get the problems wrong in front of everyone? Lisa took her son's face in her hands. Listen to me. You've been solving impossible math problems since you were 8 years old. This is your chance to shine without anyone holding you back. Just do what you've always done. Let the numbers speak to you. The next day at school, word had somehow spread about Andre's upcoming demonstration at the university. Students he barely knew approached him in the hallway with questions and encouragement. Even his teachers seemed to look at him differently. Is it true you're presenting at the Regional Olympiad lecture? His science teacher asked after class. That's quite an honor for a freshman. By lunchtime, Andre was feeling the pressure. He picked at his food while Zoe, Tyler, and Damon peppered him with questions. What kind of problems do you think they'll give you? Tyler wondered, adjusting his glasses. Will there be college professors there? Zoe asked. Maybe even math celebrities? Math celebrities? Damon laughed. Is that even a thing? Of course it is, Zoe defended. There are famous mathematicians. Andre smiled at his friend's enthusiasm, but his stomach was in knots. I just hope I don't embarrass myself. You won't, Zoe assured him. We've all seen what you can do. You're going to blow them away. After school, Andre met Dr. Phillips as planned. The substitute teacher was talking with Principal Winters when Andre arrived, both men looking serious until they noticed him. Andre, ready for your big moment? Dr. Phillips asked, his face brightening. I think so, Andre replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. Principal Winters placed a hand on Andre's shoulder. I want you to know the entire school is proud of you, Andre. This is an extraordinary opportunity. They walked out to Dr. Phillips' car together, a vintage blue Volvo station wagon covered in bumper stickers from universities around the country. As they drove to the nearby university campus, Dr. Phillips shared stories of other young mathematicians he'd mentored over the years. Many of them faced obstacles like you've encountered. He told Andre, the mathematical world hasn't always been welcoming to everyone, but those who persevere often make the most significant contributions. Andre gazed out the window, watching the university buildings come into view. What exactly will I have to do today? Nothing to worry about, Dr. Phillips assured him. I'll give a short lecture on advanced problem-solving techniques, and then I'll present 3 challenge problems. You'll come up and work through them while I explain your approach to the audience. Just solve them the way you naturally would. That's what makes this valuable for everyone watching. They pulled into the campus parking lot and made their way to a large lecture hall. As they walked, Andre noticed posters announcing the event. Innovative Approaches to Olympiad-Level Mathematics. With Dr. Robert Phillips, the posters mentioned a special guest demonstrator, but thankfully, didn't include Andre's name. How many people will be there? Andre asked nervously as they approached the building. Oh, just mathematics enthusiasts, Dr. Phillips said casually. Teachers, students, a few professors. Maybe 100 or so. 100? Andre's steps faltered. You didn't say it would be that many. Dr. Phillips paused, turning to face him. Andre, would you be more comfortable if it were 5 people or 500? 5, definitely, Andre admitted, and why is that? Less people to see if I mess up. Exactly, Dr. Phillips nodded. But the size of the audience doesn't change your mathematical ability one bit. The numbers don't care who's watching. They work the same way whether you're alone in your room or standing on a stage. Remember that? Andre took a deep breath and nodded. Okay. Inside the lecture hall, people were already filing in and finding seats. Dr. Phillips led Andre to a side room where they could prepare before the presentation began. He pulled out 3 sealed envelopes. These contain the problems we'll be working on. I haven't seen them myself. They were selected by the Olympiad committee. That way everyone knows this isn't rehearsed. Andre's nerves returned full force. You mean you don't even know what problems I'll have to solve? Isn't that exciting? Dr. Phillips grinned. Real mathematics is about facing the unknown. Besides, I have complete faith in you. Before Andre could protest further, a woman with a clipboard appeared to tell them they would begin in 5 minutes. Dr. Phillips gave Andre's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. Remember, just be yourself. Do what comes naturally. And then suddenly it was time. Andre followed Dr. Phillips onto a small stage, blinking in the bright lights. The lecture hall was packed, every seat filled with faces turned expectantly toward them. Andre scanned the crowd and was shocked to see familiar faces, Zoe, Tyler, and Damon sitting together near the front, and a few rows behind them, his mother, beaming with pride. She must have come directly from work, still wearing her hospital scrubs. Dr. Phillips began his lecture, discussing various approaches to complex mathematical problems with an enthusiasm that quickly engaged the audience. Andre stood to the side, trying to calm his racing heart by focusing on the mathematics being discussed. And now, Dr. Phillips announced after about 20 minutes, I'd like to introduce my young colleague who will help demonstrate these principles in action. This is Andre Thompson, a freshman at Westlake Academy who has shown remarkable mathematical intuition. A polite applause filled the hall as Andre stepped forward. Dr. Phillips opened the first envelope and displayed a problem. On the large screen behind them, a complex geometry question involving circles and tangent lines. Take your time, Dr. Phillips told him quietly, handing him a marker for the transparent board that stood between them and the audience. Andre stared at the problem, momentarily frozen. The audience seemed to hold its collective breath. Then, like always happened when he faced an interesting math problem, the world around him faded away. He He saw the shapes, the relationships, the patterns revealing themselves in his mind. He began to work, marker moving across the board as he broke down the problem step by step. He found an elegant solution using principles of coordinate geometry, finishing with a flourish as he circled his answer. Dr. Phillips studied his work, nodding appreciatively. Excellent approach. Notice how Andre recognized the underlying symmetry of the problem, allowing him to simplify what initially seemed complex. The second problem was even more challenging, a number theory question involving prime factorizations and modular arithmetic. Again, Andre worked through it systematically, occasionally backtracking when an approach led to a dead end, but ultimately finding a path to the solution. By the third problem, a fiendishly difficult combinatorial puzzle, Andre had forgotten about the audience entirely. He was in his element, playing with numbers and patterns the way other kids might play video games. When he finally derived the answer, he turned to find Dr. Phillips staring at his work with an expression of pure astonishment. "Remarkable," the professor murmured, then louder to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we've just witnessed is truly exceptional. Andre has not only solved these Olympiad-level problems, he's done so using approaches that demonstrate profound mathematical insight." The audience burst into enthusiastic applause. Andre felt his face grow warm as he glanced toward his mother, who was wiping tears from her eyes while clapping furiously. After the presentation, people crowded around, asking questions and congratulating him. Several university professors introduced themselves, offering their cards and invitations to visit their departments. One woman identified herself as a talent scout for a prestigious STEM academy, asking if they could schedule a meeting to discuss Andre's future. It was overwhelming and exhilarating all at once. Through the crowd, Andre spotted his friends pushing their way forward, Zoe practically bouncing with excitement. "You were amazing," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around him in a quick hug. "I didn't understand half of what you did, but it looked really impressive." Tyler nodded enthusiastically. "The way you solved that second problem? Even the professors were whispering about it." "Thanks for coming," Andre said, genuinely moved by their support. "I didn't expect to see you guys here. Are you kidding?" "We wouldn't miss it," Damon grinned. "Besides, we wanted to see the look on—" He stopped abruptly, eyes fixed on something over Andre's shoulder. Andre turned to find Mrs. Wilson standing a few feet away, her expression unreadable. The crowd around them quieted, sensing the tension. Andre felt a flash of anxiety, followed by something unexpected, confidence. After what had just happened, after all these people had seen what he could do, Mrs. Wilson's opinion somehow mattered less than before. "Mrs. Wilson," he acknowledged with a nod. "I didn't know you were here. Principal Winters suggested I attend," she replied, her voice carefully controlled. "He thought it would be educational." Dr. Phillips appeared at Andre's side, placing a supportive hand on his shoulder. Mrs. Wilson, I was hoping you'd make it. Your student has quite a remarkable mind, wouldn't you agree?" Mrs. Wilson's gaze flicked between them. "It would seem I underestimated certain aspects of his mathematical ability." It wasn't an apology, not really, but it was the closest thing to an admission Andre had heard from her. Before he could respond, his mother joined their circle, standing tall beside her son. "Mrs. Wilson," Lisa Thompson said coolly, "I believe we were supposed to have a follow-up meeting about Andre's situation in your class." Mrs. Wilson straightened her shoulders. "Yes, well, in light of recent developments, perhaps we should reconsider Andre's placement. It may be that the standard advanced curriculum is actually insufficient for his needs." Andre blinked, hardly believing what he was hearing. Dr. Phillips smiled broadly. "I was thinking the same thing," he agreed. "In fact, I've already discussed some possibilities with the principal and Andre's mother. We believe an individualized curriculum might be more appropriate, perhaps with some university-level coursework." Mrs. Wilson's tight smile didn't reach her eyes, but she nodded stiffly, "If that's what's best for the student." As the crowd began to disperse and people said their goodbyes, Andre found himself standing with Dr. Phillips near the stage. "What happens now?" he asked the professor. Dr. Phillips smiled warmly. "Now, young man, doors begin to open. Your performance today will not go unnoticed in the mathematical community. As for immediate next steps, I'll be at Westlake for the rest of the week. Let's use that time to design a learning plan that actually challenges you." Andre thought about Mrs. Wilson. about the weeks of struggling against her low expectations and biased treatment. And what about after you leave? What if things go back to how they were? Dr. Phillips shook his head firmly. That won't happen. Too many people have seen what you're capable of now. Myself, Principal Winters, those university professors who gave you their cards. You have advocates now, Andre. And more importantly, you know your own value. That's something no one can take away from you. As they walked out of the lecture hall together, Andre spotted his mother waiting by the doors, her face glowing with pride. Beyond her, through the windows, he could see the sun setting over the university campus, a place that had seemed so distant just that morning, but now felt like a glimpse of his future. For the first time since coming to Westlake, Andre felt like he truly belonged, not despite who he was, but because of it. The next morning felt different as Andre walked through the doors of Westlake Academy. Students who had never spoken to him before nodded in recognition or stopped to congratulate him. A sophomore he barely knew high-fived him in the hallway. Heard you crushed it at that math thing yesterday, the boy said. That's sick, man. By the time Andre reached his locker, Zoe, Tyler, and Damon were already waiting for him, grinning like they'd won the lottery. There he is, the math celebrity, Zoe announced, making room for him at his locker. How does it feel to be famous? Andre laughed, shaking his head. I'm not famous. I just solved some math problems. Dude, Principal Winters announced what happened at the university over the morning announcements, Damon said. The whole school knows. Andre froze with his hand on his locker door. He did what? Tyler nodded enthusiastically. He said, and I quote, Westlake Academy is proud to announce that freshman Andre Thompson represented our school with distinction at yesterday's Regional Mathematics Olympiad lecture, demonstrating exceptional problem-solving abilities that impressed university faculty and Olympiad officials alike. Oh no, Andre groaned, dropping his forehead against his locker. Now everyone's going to think I'm a total nerd. They already think that, Zoe teased. Now they just know you're a nerd who's going places. Despite his embarrassment, Andre couldn't help but smile. For the first time since arriving at Westlake, he felt visible in a good way, seen for what he could do, not just who he was. The real test came during third period. Advanced algebra with Mrs. Wilson. Andre took his usual seat in the back row, bracing himself for whatever came next. The classroom filled quickly, with several students stopping by his desk to ask about the demonstration or congratulate him. When Mrs. Wilson entered, the room fell silent. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes and a tightness around her mouth. Her gaze swept across the room, pausing briefly on Andre before she turned to write on the board. Today we'll be discussing advanced polynomial functions, she announced, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. But first I have an announcement. She turned to face the class, hands clasped in front of her. As some of you may have heard, our school has been invited to host a special mathematics workshop next month, led by faculty from the university. Principal Winters has asked me to select students who might benefit from this opportunity. Her eyes found Andre again. Andre Thompson will be one of these students, along with anyone else who wishes to challenge themselves beyond our regular curriculum. Whispers rippled through the classroom. Mrs. Wilson continued writing on the board as if nothing unusual had happened, but Andre sat in stunned silence. It wasn't exactly an apology, but it was a public acknowledgement of his abilities, something he wouldn't have thought possible just days ago. After class, as Andre was gathering his books, Mrs. Wilson called to him. Mr. Thompson, a moment, please. His friends shot him encouraging glances as they filed out, leaving him alone with the teacher who had made his life so difficult. Dr. Phillips has shared his assessment of your mathematical abilities with me, Mrs. Wilson began, not quite meeting his eyes. He believes, and Principal Winters agrees, that you would be better served by an accelerated program. Andre waited, unsure how to respond. I've been teaching for 15 years, she continued, finally looking at him directly. In that time, I've developed certain expectations about students. Sometimes those expectations can become limitations. It was as close to an admission of bias as she seemed capable of giving. Andre realized with sudden clarity that this difficult conversation was probably the result of pressure from above, from Principal Winters, Dr. Phillips, and possibly others. Starting next week, You'll be following a modified curriculum, Mrs. Wilson continued, handing him a folder. You'll attend regular class but work on these university-level materials independently. Dr. Phillips has arranged for weekly check-ins with a professor from the mathematics department. Andre took the folder, opening it to find course materials far beyond anything he'd seen in high school. Thank you, he said simply. Mrs. Wilson nodded stiffly. You have genuine talent, Mr. Thompson. It would be unprofessional of me to stand in the way of its development. It wasn't warmth in her voice, not quite, but there was a new note of respect that hadn't been there before. For Andre, that was enough. The following weeks brought changes Andre couldn't have imagined. The special curriculum challenged him in ways his regular classes never had. Every Friday afternoon, he met with Professor Chen from the university, who guided his studies and pushed his thinking even further. The Mathematics Olympiad team, which now included Andre as a key member, began winning regional competitions, bringing positive attention to Westlake's program. Mrs. Wilson, while never particularly warm toward Andre, treated him with a careful professionalism that allowed him to thrive. Most importantly, Andre found himself surrounded by people who believed in him. His friendship circle expanded beyond Zoe, Tyler, and Damon to include other students interested in mathematics and science. He started a lunchtime math club where he helped classmates who struggled with the subject, discovering he had a talent for explaining complex concepts in simple terms. One afternoon in late spring, Andre arrived home to find his mother sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of official-looking envelopes. "There's my genius," Lisa greeted him with a proud smile. "How was school?" "Pretty good." Andre dropped his backpack and peered at the envelopes. "What's all this?" "These," Lisa said, spreading them out like a dealer at a card table, "are your options." Each envelope bore the logo of a different, prestigious summer program, including the National adhering Institute for Mathematical Advancement that Dr. Phillips had mentioned. "They all want you," his mother explained, her voice catching slightly. "Full scholarships, every single one." Andre sank into a chair, overwhelmed. "For real?" "For real," Lisa confirmed, pushing the NEMA envelope toward him. "This one came with a personal note from Dr. Phillips. He says you're one of the most promising young mathematicians he's encountered in decades." Andre opened the letter with trembling fingers, reading Dr. Phillips's enthusiastic recommendation and the program's acceptance. 6 weeks at one of the country's top mathematics institutes, working alongside other gifted students and leading mathematicians. It was beyond anything he'd dreamed possible. "I don't know what to say," he whispered. "You don't have to say anything," his mother replied, reaching across the table to squeeze his hand. "Just promise me one thing. No matter where your gift takes you, remember how hard you fought to have it recognized. And someday, when you're in a position to help someone else fighting the same battle, you'll remember what it felt like to be in their shoes." Andre nodded solemnly. "I promise." 2 weeks before the end of the school year, Westlake Academy held a special assembly to recognize outstanding student achievements. Andre sat with his friends, half listening as various awards were announced for athletics, community service, and academic excellence. And now, Principal Winters announced a special recognition. Each year, Westlake nominates one exceptional student for the Future Leaders in STEM Scholarship. This year's nominee, who has already been accepted to the prestigious National Institute for Mathematical Advancement summer program, is Andre Thompson. Applause filled the auditorium as Andre made his way to the stage, still not quite believing this was real. As Principal Winters handed him the certificate, he spotted familiar faces in the audience. His mother, of course, beaming with pride. Dr. Phillips, who had returned for the occasion, Professor Chen from the university, and even Mrs. Wilson, whose tight smile couldn't completely hide what might have been grudging admiration. "Would you like to say a few words?" the principal asked, gesturing to the microphone. Andre hadn't prepared anything, but as he stepped up to the podium and looked out at the assembled students and teachers, he knew exactly what he wanted to say. "Thank you for this honor," he began, his voice steady despite his racing heart. 6 months ago, when I first came to Westlake, I wasn't sure I belonged here. I felt like no matter how hard I worked or what I achieved, some people would only ever see me as an outsider." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "But what I've learned is that real talent doesn't stay hidden forever. Sometimes you have to fight harder to be seen for who you really are." And when that happens, when people finally see you, it's not just your victory. It opens doors for others too. Andre glanced at his mother, drawing strength from her encouraging nod. I want to thank the people who believed in me from the beginning. My mom who never doubted me for a second. My friends who stood by me when things were tough. And the teachers and mentors who pushed me to reach higher. He took a deep breath before continuing. And I also want to thank those who challenged me, sometimes in ways that weren't fair or kind, because overcoming those challenges taught me something important. No one can define my potential but
me.
The auditorium erupted in applause as Andre stepped away from the microphone. As he returned to his seat, students reached out to pat his back or offer fist bumps. The victory wasn't just about the award or the scholarship. It was about being fully seen and valued for who he was. Later that afternoon, as Andre and his friends walked home from school, Zoe nudged his shoulder playfully. So, Mr. Future Leader in STEM, what are you going to do with your Summer of Math Genius Camp? Andre laughed, feeling lighter than he had in months. Learn everything I can, meet other math nerds, prepare to take over the world with the power of equations. Sounds boring, Damon teased, but we're still proud of you. You'd better keep in touch, Tyler added. And come back with some cool math tricks to show us. Of course I will, Andre promised. You guys helped me get through the worst of it. I won't forget that. As they reached the corner where their paths diverged, Andre found himself reflecting on how much had changed. He thought about Mrs. Wilson, who would likely never fully accept him but had been forced to acknowledge his abilities. He thought about Dr. Phillips and the other mentors who had recognized his potential and fought to nurture it. Most of all, he thought about his own journey, from feeling invisible to standing confidently in the spotlight of his own making. The path forward wouldn't always be easy. There would be other Mrs. Wilsons in his future, other battles to fight. But Andre knew now that he had the strength to face them, not just because of his gift for mathematics, but because he understood his own worth in a way that no one could take away. As he waved goodbye to his friends and turned toward home, Andre looked up at the clear blue sky stretching endlessly above him. For the first time since arriving at Westlake Academy, the future seemed just as vast and full of possibility, and he was ready for it, all of it, equation by brilliant equation.